The UK has been home to many coasters throughout history, ranging from simple wacky worms like Rattler at Frontierland to the tallest and fastest UK coaster Hyperia. Every roller coaster has their purpose. Naturally, every roller coaster has their time too. Roller coasters don't last forever, and often many of these rides get torn down and replaced with something new. However, just because a park removes a coaster doesn't mean it should be ready for its next life in the scrapyard. Many roller coasters get a second, third, or even fourth chance at life by being relocated. Here are 6 of the most well-known relocated coasters that have operated in the UK at least once, featuring my good friends Nouchwithnocreds and Theme Park Pierce. The first entry on this list is one that a few people may not have been expecting. In 1999, the Thompson family, owners of Blackpool Pleasure Beach and at the time Frontierland and Southport Pleasureland, decided to add a brand new coaster into their Southport park. The model they picked was a standard suspended looping coaster manufactured by Vekoma. The ride was given a sponsorship by the well-known soft drink Tizer, and due to this, the ride was named Traumatizer.
2,200 feet of steel track, over 100 feet high, up to 4.5 positive G, 5 360-degree inversions. The UK's tallest, fastest suspended looping coaster, Traumatizer, only at Pleasureland, Southport.
This sponsorship system had been seen on other rides from the Thompsons parks, including Frontierland's Polo Tower, as well as Blackpool's Iron Brew Revolution, and of course, Pepsi Max Big One. Traumatizer was given a red and blue colour scheme very similar to that of Pepsi Max Big One, showing how this ride was now the main attraction of Southport Pleasureland. As stated before, Traumatizer was a standard Vekoma SLC found in many parks across the world. The first of these debuted at Wallaby Holland as El Condor in 1994. The ride itself was nothing special, however the popping colour scheme as well as the substantial height of the ride compared to the rest of the park's attractions made Traumatizer an icon of Southport Pleasureland, and helped attendance rise for the next 2 years. However, attendance started to fall again, not helped by the fact that the park had moved to a one-price admission system. In 2006, Southport Pleasureland was closed by Amanda Thompson, who by this point had taken over as the owner of the parks due to her father Jeffrey's death. Multiple rides were removed from the park, including the former runaway mine train from Frontierland, and of course, Traumatizer. The ride made the trip up north and was soon found in the car park for Blackpool Pleasure Beach. The ride itself was rebuilt over the 2006 to 2007 winter period on the former site of the log flume drenched falls. Traumatizer reopened in 2007 as the world's first suspended coaster fully over water. The red track was repainted blue and the ride was given the name of Infusion. As the years went on, some of the blue paint on the track has chipped away, revealing the ride's former red colour scheme and reminding people of its life as Traumatizer. Since being relocated, the ride has also been featured on an advert for Specsavers, where some elderly people believed they were sat on a bench but were in fact riding Infusion.
That's better. So crowded.
Noisy too. Got a cheese one?
It's nice to take the weight off your feet.
What sort of cheese was that?
The ride has been operating ever since 2007 and doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Our next entry might have the most interesting story out of all the coasters on this list. This coaster was originally intended for Brazil's Hopi Hari and is an Intamin 10 inversion version B coaster. In fact, this would have been the first to open of its kind if it opened in Hopi Hari. The ride shares a similar layout to version A, for example Colossus down at Thorpe Park, although the main differences are the cable lift hill and the steeper drop. This coaster arrived at Hopi Hari in 2012 and sported a red and yellow colour scheme. Unfortunately, Hopi Hari couldn't construct the ride due to not having enough funding after purchasing the ride. After a few years, the park sold the ride to the owner of the local shopping centre named Mr. Federer. They aimed to use the money from the sale to build the ride at the park and then lease the coaster from Mr. Federer. Unfortunately, this plan didn't work out, and after waiting a while, Mr. Federer sold the ride in 2017. The ride next appeared that same year at a park called Movie Animation Park Studios in Malaysia. Not much is known about its time in Malaysia, with there not even being any photos of the ride in this location. Once again, the ride was never built here. It seems the park purchased it to build up attendance numbers due to how low attendance had been since opening, averaging around 200 visitors a day. The park very clearly was struggling, as by 2019 the ride had once again been sold. By January 2020, Movie Park Animation Studios had been permanently closed. The coaster would next pop up in the United Kingdom. In 2019, Flamingo Land in North Yorkshire had seemed to be planning a new roller coaster. Certain rides were removed, a planning application was submitted and granted, and by October, the red track and an unbuilt Intamin coaster had arrived at the park. Originally planned to open in 2020, many people believed the ride would be named Inversion, with an I and an O stylised to form a 10, indicating the number of inversions the ride had. Eventually, the COVID-19 pandemic forced the park to push the ride back to 2021, and again in 2022. In April 2022, the park had posted 2 posts on social media which strangely included the word sick. In May, the park announced the ride would be named Sick, in association with the clothing brand Sick Silk. For this, the ride was painted grey and black, and eventually opened in July of 2022. The ride had become a signature ride at Flamingo Land and shares the number 2 spot for the coaster with the most inversions in the United Kingdom, along with Colossus.
Moving on, we now have one of the most missed UK coasters. Black Hole was Alton Towers' third coaster. It opened in 1983, the same year as the Beastie, and was situated in the park's Springfield Centre area. The ride was a standard Schwarzkopf Jetstar 2, one of the most manufactured coaster models of all time. This ride was unique, however, as it sat in a tent. The ride itself was an investment on a similar level as that of the park's oldest coaster, Corkscrew, and was seemingly inspired by Disney's Space Mountain. In 1988, a German company modified the ride to have longer trains as the original couldn't run with coupled trains. With this modification, the ride was renamed Black Hole 2 and then New Black Hole in 1989. The ride survived the area's re-themes from Springfield Centre to Fantasy World and Fantasy World to X Sector. With this 1998 re-theme, the ride was now joined by the park's latest secret weapon. Oblivion opened as the world's first vertical drop coaster and was now the star of the area, with Black Hole being just a supporting attraction. The ride's tent was repainted and the ride's sign was replaced to fit in with the area. This update wasn't done to the station, however, as that maintained its steampunk theming. As the years went on, the ride began to look more and more tired. This didn't help with the arrival of rides like Hex in 2000, another indoor ride, and Submission in 2001, a new ride directly opposite Black Hole. In 2005, Alton Towers made the decision to retire Black Hole. For the next few years, the ride would be standing but not operating. This would be until 2007 when the ride itself was removed from the park. In the following years, the tent was used for a few Scarefest mazes but mostly sat unused. It was demolished in 2012 for preparation for Secret Weapon 7. In 2013, Black Hole was replaced by the world's first 14 looping coaster, the Smiler. Black Hole, however, wasn't taken to the scrapyard. Instead, it was sent to be refurbished by the same company who manufactured the Smiler, Gerslauer. This ride would eventually reopen in Sweden in 2011 at a small park named Furuvik, where Black Hole would be renamed Rocket. It was repainted red and blue and no longer sat in a tent. It operated for 11 seasons before closing in 2021. The ride was removed from the site but has been seen on a used rides website, meaning the story of this coaster may not be over just yet. This entry is definitely the most historical of the coasters on this list. This Schwarzkopf coaster originally opened on the German fair circuit under the name Dreier Looping, German for triple loop. This name was fitting as it was the first coaster to feature 3 vertical loops. This coaster was very similar to other Schwarzkopf looping coasters manufactured around the same time, like Mindbender at Galaxyland, Thriller, and of course, Olympia Looping. The ride featured diving turns, twists, and its signature 3 loops. It spent a total of 12 years on the travelling circuit before being bought by Sunway Lagoon in Malaysia in 1996. The ride reopened in 1997 under the name of Triple Looper and was repainted pink. The ride only lasted a few seasons however, as Sunway Lagoon sold the coaster in 1999 to Flamingoland. In 2000, it opened at its second park home as Magnum Force. It's said that its original name was going to be Mach 3, however the ride gained a sponsorship by Wall's Magnum Ice Creams. Due to this, the ride was repainted from its old pink look to red and white, to match the colours of Wall's. Magnum Force was liked by the public, but didn't last long. In 2005, the ride was shut down as part of a park-wide renovation to Flamingoland. The ride was up for sale for a couple of years before being sold to a park in Mexico named La Feria Chapultepec Magico, where it would reopen in 2007 under the name of Montaña Infinitum, and later Montaña Triple Loop. In 2016, the ride was renamed once again to Chimera. In its Mexico home, the ride was once again given multiple repaints. Its first colour scheme consisted of yellow track, white supports and blue loops. When the ride became Chimera, the loops were repainted bright red. During its life at this park, the ride was run differently compared to its previous homes. The main difference was that the ride wasn't run with its mid-course brakes. This caused the track, supports and trains to deteriorate much faster. The deteriorating track, along with little to no maintenance performed by the park, led to disaster in 2019 when the back car of one of the trains derailed. 5 people were injured and unfortunately, 2 people passed away. After this incident, all rides in the park closed as the park was now under investigation. Once the investigation concluded, it was announced that the park wouldn't reopen with any of its current attractions. With this news, many people believed Chimera would head to the scrapyard as the accident seemed to be the final nail in the coffin for the ride. This was not to be however, as it was soon announced that the ride would make its way to Indiana Beach. With this relocation, Chimera would be given a full renovation, repaint and new trains. The trains came from the recently closed Mindbender at Galaxyland. After multiple years, Chimera reopened in 2024 under the name of All American Triple Loop, to mostly negative reviews. This has mainly been due to the ride's accordion style over the shoulder restraints. Indiana Beach have been quick to remedy this however, as they have stated that the ride's restraints will be modified, resulting in the removal of the accordion style restraints. This will surely improve the ride experience and make this coaster a must-do at its new home.
Our next coaster is noteworthy for being one of the first launched coasters ever. In 1977, King's Dominion in Virginia opened their first coaster since opening in 1975. King Cobra was a shuttle loop coaster manufactured by Schwarzkopf. This particular installation used a weight drop system to launch the train, rather than the flywheel launch system introduced the next year. But they simply featured the launch that took the train to 53 miles an hour, a loop, and 2 137-foot tall spikes in order for the train to go through the layout in reverse. The ride's picturesque location, as well as fun ride experience, made this one of the park's more beloved defunct coasters. In 1986, King's Dominion closed the ride because of the technical nightmare the primitive launch systems was, requiring more maintenance and care than the park's other rides. In 1987, King Cobra reopened under the same name at Maryland's Jolly Roger amusement park. The ride was given a repaint, and its scene in the park was in it for the long haul. This was cut short however, as the noise of the launch system violated the noise ordinance, causing the ride to be shut down in 1989. The ride's next location will be its most unexpected. In 1990, King Cobra reopened at Alton Towers under the name of Thunder Looper, and became the signature attraction of the new Thunder Valley area. The ride stood tall despite the park's height restrictions and even stayed standing after Nemesis opened, Eventually the ride's height will be the reason the ride would soon be removed. Alton Towers are prohibited from building above the tree line, something which Thunderlooper spikes violated, along with the noise of the launching system causing the cows to mate at the wrong time of the year. Alton Towers decided to cut their losses and remove Thunderlooper. The ride was replaced by the Blade, the park's relocated pirate ship, and Ripsaw, a new for 1997 topspin. The queue for the ride has stayed in place ever since. Following its removal from Alton Towers, the ride was next seen at Brazil's Hopi Hari in 1999. With this final relocation, the ride was given a bright repaint and has been given the name of Catapult. It operated until 2012 when it closed for refurbishment. In December 2012, the ride reopened with a repaint and a new Superman theme. This lasted until 2021 when the ride was once again repainted and the Superman theme had been removed. The ride is still thrilling riders in Brazil as of today.
Our final coaster is one of the most infamous UK roller coasters. However, its story begins far from England. In 1987, a coaster opened at a park named Portopia Land in Japan, named Bavarian Mountain Railroad. This coaster, manufactured by Sierra, was designed by the one and only Anton Schwarzkopf. Bavarian Mountain Railroad was the first of 3 Sierra coasters designed by the beloved designer, the others being Leesburg-Bannon at Leesburg and Jetline at Groenland. Bavarian Mountain Railroad had a similar design to many Schwarzkopf travelling coasters, excluding the use of inversions. Bavarian Mountain Railroad, later named BMRX, featured a curved lift hill which reached up to 87 feet, a steep straight drop, and multiple curved drops reaching speeds of 49 miles an hour. One specific drop pulled 5 G of force, making it one of the most intense drops on any coaster. The ride itself was half enclosed in a mountain and received enhanced special effects upon its rename to BMRX in 1997. In 2006, the park unfortunately closed down and BMRX was sold to a small UK park named Camelot. This small Lancashire park bought the ride and constructed it for a total of £3 million. The ride was placed in the back of the park and was given the name of Nightmare. The mountain structure from its previous home wasn't brought over to Camelot, meaning the coaster now was a fully outdoor ride. The addition of Nightmare helped the park live on for a few more years as the park was facing closure before the ride was installed. Unfortunately, the ride didn't fully save the park. In 2012, Camelot closed down. Many of the rides were relocated, but Nightmare wasn't one of them. Nightmare was left standing on the deteriorating site until rumours began circling in 2015 that Southport Pleasureland had purchased the ride. This was furthered in 2017 when one of the trains was seen for the first time since the park closed. Unfortunately, the train had slipped and fallen off the back of a lorry. Eventually, the trains were seen in storage at Southport Pleasureland, despite the park themselves confirming they didn't own the coaster itself. Throughout all of this, the ride itself remained standing just off the M6 in Chorley. Its prominence on the side of a major motorway, as well as the popularity of the closed Camelot, led to many urban explorers breaking into the park to climb Nightmare's lift hill. As this was going on, the owners of the site were discussing the safety of the standing structures and eventually came to the conclusion that to be safe, the remaining structures needed to come down. In February 2020, the demolition process began when after almost 8 years, Nightmare was finally being taken down. Due to how long the ride was standing with no maintenance, the ride had to be scrapped. This was completed before March 2020, with other structures of the park being demolished between December 2020 and July 2021, ending the story of Nightmare and Camelot. I just want to give an extra special thanks to Nouchwithnocreds and Theme Park Pierce for featuring in this video. Your work is much appreciated and thank you for being such awesome co-hosts. Thank you all for watching.